The latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. The world is burning, but the fire isn't where you think it is. While the headlines scream about missiles over the Strait of Hormuz and American boots on the ground in the Middle East, a different kind of explosion is happening right here on our soil, in our pockets, in our future. Osman Sonko just dropped a bombshell that the West didn't see coming, a warning that echoes from the streets of Dhaka to the palaces of Bamako. He didn't just talk about war, he talked about betrayal. He said the West no one wanted to hear. Africa has no friends, quote and end of quote. To understand the present, we must look at the goals of the past. History is a circle, and we are spinning back to 1973. When the world catches a cold, Africa gets pneumonia. By this time, the stakes are higher. As the US and Iran trade blows, the prices of every liter of fuel in Senegal, Mali, and Burkina Faso is being decided by a war we didn't start. Sonko's message is clear. The IMF and the World Bank are the chains, but this war is the padlock.
We are experiencing rather unusual times, very dark moments, extremely delicate situations whose consequences and implications we must fully consider. For the past 2 days, a war has broken out in the Middle East. We must call it what it is. A war initiated by the United States of America and their Israeli allies. They have chosen to strike a country, namely Iran, and they have triggered that country's response, which has set the entire Gulf region ablaze. We would be very naive to think that it would stop there. We all hope that it doesn't go any further than this. But we must be pessimistic and see things in the most clear-sighted and realistic way possible. A series of military strikes have been carried out, and a significant reaction has consequently been triggered, which could potentially lead to further reactions with other global actors entering the conflict, and perhaps significant ramifications that will extend well beyond this part of the world. It is deeply deplorable and profoundly tragic because at the very core of the matter, we find ourselves in a situation where for over a year now, we have been witnessing with our own eyes the replacement of the global social contract by a return to a primitive state of nature. This involves the systematic dismantling of international law, a world where a country can grant itself the absolute right at any given moment to kidnap individuals without consequence, presidents to attack other countries, to suffocate nations in order to later announce that they will peacefully take possession of them, a country without a UN resolution or mandate can decide to strike other countries, to kill, to assassinate, let's call it what it is, their leaders. This is extremely serious, and the entire balance of the world that has been built over the past 45, even 50 years is now compromised. It is deplorable and must be condemned. I would like to extend our deepest condolences to the family and to the people. Leaders who have been assassinated, Iranian leaders who have been assassinated, and hope that this conflict comes to a swift end for the good of the world. We must consider all the consequences of this conflict which go beyond the purely military aspect. We all know that today traffic around the Strait of Hormuz is compromised, and we know that at least 40% or 30% of the world's oil, of global hydrocarbons, passes through this strait. The economic impacts for all countries, including Senegal, whose consumption of petroleum products depends on this traffic, will be very significant. The consequences more generally for the world economy will be very significant, with impacts on capital mobility, on investment, and the repercussions on all other consumer products. Because you know that everything runs on these hydrocarbon products. Practically, industries, the economy, everything. And so even everyday consumer products, especially food products, basic necessities, all other products will be affected. And all of this because of a unilateral decision by an all-powerful country, no matter how powerful, to start a war, to strike other countries. And that's deplorable. But we need to conduct a geopolitical analysis of these situations. These are not random situations. Just the day before yesterday in the assembly, I spoke to you about the Thucydides trap. I've been talking to you about it for quite some time now. I would like us all to be fully aware of the situation. We have emerging powers grouped around the BRICS with China as a driving country, which today, whatever is said economically, technologically, and certainly increasingly on the military front, are on the rise. Not only are they catching up on all the delays, but they are also overtaking the old Western world, led by the United States of America. And everything you see is just reactions from this bloc, and especially from the United States, who are afraid of losing the primacy they've held for so long. This overwhelming domination over the rest of the world. And if you look closely at the map of interventions, the goal is to slow down and expel a power like China from South America, first of all. That's why what happened in Venezuela happened, what's currently happening in Cuba, and what could happen elsewhere, since Colombia has also been threatened. This is what's currently happening in the Middle East, where the aim is to effectively cut off all connections these countries have with China, with Russia, and perhaps with other BRICS countries. And the rapprochement over hydrocarbon products, Europe doesn't pose a fundamental problem, since Europe is, at least in this Western bloc, a satellite of the United States. Everything that's happening is an attempt to isolate a rising power, and then to be able to focus specifically on that power, whether in the context of a trade war, which would be fortunate if it were limited to that. We would not wish for it to go much further, especially with powers that possess nuclear arsenals and are mastering increasingly extremely sophisticated technologies. We are in this very particular geopolitical context as far as Africa is concerned, because we've talked about Europe, we've talked about America, we've talked about Asia. And as usual, it is very difficult to talk about Africa, since Africans have never taken responsibility to understand the issues at stake. And to understand that they have no friends, that they have no relatives, and that they must rely on themselves through the necessary reforms, by resolving a number of unnecessary disputes or conflicts, by ensuring stability, but above all by working, by getting to work.
While the world looked east, Sonko looked inland, to the heart of the Sahel. His recent travels weren't just diplomatic visits, they were the blueprint for a revolution. He stood with Traoré, he stood with Guaita. He is building a sovereign diplomacy. For decades we are told to choose a side, east or west. Sonko is proposing a third option, our side, the African side. Because when the elephant fights, it is the grass that suffers, and the grass is tired of being stepped on. But there is a shadow inside the house, a rift that could tear the vision apart before it begins. Sonko didn't just attack the West, he turned his gaze inward toward the very government he helped build. The ultimatum has set: follow the vision of total liberation or he walks. The US attack on Iran was the spark. The economic fallout is the test, but Sonko's warning is the wake-up call. Africa has no friends, only interests, and it's time we started protecting our own. The question isn't what will Washington do? The question is, what will we do? History is being written in real time. Don't be on the wrong side of it. Stay awake. The liberation has already begun. This time, we must move along. Let's look at what Iran is doing. Iran was under sanction for 40 good years. Iran built. Iran stood. Iran is defending itself today. If Africa will continue to be folding our arms in division, then we will be at the wrong side of history. We do not have friends. It's time for our leaders to understand the only friend of the African is the African. We cannot continue to be holding on to these people in the name of business partnership just because we want to score some few favor from them. They do not have any friend. They only have permanent interest. And if Africa, we are going to survive in this new world, we should always carry our interests first. We have always put the interests of other people ahead of us. But in this new world, if we continue this way, we will suffer. Because like they said, if two elephants are fighting, it's Africa that will be the grass, and we are going to suffer. Already we are going to suffer the consequences, because as this war has begun, a war that we never began, it is you and I in Africa that will suffer. This is the time we all must unite as Africans to fight for our total liberation. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we'll make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world. In Africa, West Africa, in Senegal.